Hello. As we just saw in the Augustus video, we are now in the time period of the Roman Empire. Augustus helped bring stability to the Romans after years of conflict had torn it apart. His lengthy reign also helped cement the role of the emperor as the focal point for the Roman Empire itself. Now, power would pass from one emperor to the next, and those emperors would exude what was absolute control over the entire empire itself. Now, some of these emperors were very good. For example, Hadrian, who helped extend the Roman Empire into England and eventually built what was later to be called Hadrian's Wall. And Marcus Aurelius, one of the 5 good emperors, as he's called. Some of you may know him from the movie Gladiator. But there are also some very bad Roman emperors. For example, Caligula and Nero. These emperors were power-hungry, drunk with the power that they were afforded to by their position, and exuded horrible control over the people and did horrible things to people as well. The Roman Empire itself was mainly supported by its sophisticated army. What do I mean by that? The army was made up of soldiers, which the Romans called legionnaires, and these legionnaires would be set up into different divisions, and these divisions would be called legions. Now, initially, the legionnaires could only be Roman citizens. As time passed, as the Roman Empire grew, this would eventually change. Now, the legionnaire was not just simply a soldier. The legionnaire was also a craftsman, he was also an architect, and a mason. Whenever the Romans would enter into a new area, conquer a new land, they wouldn't just stop right there and put in control of their own people. They would rebuild the area. They would build roads. They would build walls. They would build schools. They would build government buildings. And they would build, most famously, aqueducts that can still be seen around the place. Aqueducts are arches that are built to bring water from distant places into city centers. And so the Romans themselves, when they would conquer an area, they would Romanize the area. They would turn it into a smaller vision of what they saw in Rome by building the grand architecture that we can see in modern-day Italy, which still some parts of it remain. I'll post some helpful links about some different areas that were Romanized by the legionnaires, but it's just interesting to keep in mind is that the Roman soldier's job was never done. Once he fought and took over an area, then the hard work sometimes really began about building up the area and transferring into becoming part of the proper Roman Empire. A little bit on the Roman religion. Rome had a state religion. Its state religion was based on a pantheon of gods. They were polytheistic. Some of their most famous gods are Jupiter and Mars. It's where we get our name of our planets from. Now, these gods were based off of the Greek gods. They were derived from them. I talked a little bit about it in class. Jupiter is the same almost as Zeus. And so they call what is called the Greco-Roman gods because they're so similar in nature. Now, contrary to popular belief, the Romans were actually extremely tolerant of other religions. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that the Romans would allow people that they conquered to keep worshiping the gods that they believed in. For example, Judaism. They didn't interfere with the Jews practicing religion. Another example is the cult of Isis, which was a worship of an Egyptian goddess. They didn't interfere with these, but they did recognize that Rome itself had a state religion, but they did allow people to go ahead and continue to worship their own gods. Now, for those of you who studied the past history of Christianity, you'll be familiar with some of the Roman Empire's treatment of Christians, but I want you to keep one thing in mind as we go forward. A lot of the Romans were actually highly tolerant of other religions. And so it's kind of interesting to hear that, especially when you may have seen in the past where that may not have been the case. Next, we're going to have some fun videos on some gladiators, so I hope you like that. Later on, I'll be posting a study guide. As I mentioned, we will have our midterm next week, so I'll post a study guide, and I'll also be posting some helpful links during the week. Like I said, good luck on the midterm, and I will see you on Monday.